Hi, this is Professor Hazara, and we're continuing. It's probably going to be 5 short videos, including the last one. We're continuing the series on levered companies, and this is kind of just the concepts. This whole series of 5 videos, just the concepts, and we'll see if we can apply it more deeply as we go into toward the end of the semester. Anyway, so uh, the first video is just the concept. There's 2 concepts that I want you to remember. One is the original Modigliani-Miller theory that stated that a firm's value is determined by its assets, regardless of its capital mixture. So if you have 2 identical firms with $100,000 in assets, they should both be worth the same, regardless of whether it's 100% equity or 60% debt and 40% assets. Then they changed the theory to provide some value to interest based on the deductibility of interest and taxes. So that would give you a little bit more of a cash flow there. That's what they call the value of debt. Then finally, I want you to remember this formula here, because we've been using the constant growth formula in our valuations, and now we're going to use the no growth formula. You can actually use that internal value as internal value and keep it easy and just use this formula, which is much easier, which is just a cash flow divided by cost of capital, any cash flow divided by a corresponding cost of capital. But I still think firms do grow. So anyway, so let's go over here to this sheet to the right here. And the sheet to the right says valuation with leverage. Now, I don't know why I did this, because I probably won't be connecting to them. But here's the income statement from Microsoft starting in June 2020. Here are their balance sheets, and here's their statement of cash flows. I guess I just did those, copied them over to make myself feel better. I don't know. Okay, so what we're going to do in this video, I'm going to do is there's going to be 3 things I do here. I'm going to give you some initial inputs. Then I'm going to calculate the free cash flows, very, very close, but I'm going to do it to both the firm and to the next level down, which is just equity. And then finally, I'm going to do a calculation of what we call return on stock, but it's going to be returned to it's going to be called unlevered return, return on unlevered shares, meaning that we're going to presume in this calculation that Microsoft has no debt. And then we'll go ahead and add debt in the evaluations as we go down. Okay, so let's start here. These are going to be initial inputs, and these are just, I'm not going to put input growth yet. I'm going to input 3 things here. One is the interest expense, which is just going to come from, I can just go to the ratios over to the side. It's the same sheet I've been using all along. And then we'll get the tax rate from the ratio sheet too. And then I'm going to get something which I'm going to call unlevered beta. It could be levered beta. It really probably is levered beta, but I'll just give you, we'll just make this something that's unlevered at this point. So anyway, our interest expense, the first input is going to be interest expense. The next input is going to be the tax rate. I'm just going to pull those from the ratios that I've calculated to the side. And the final input is, I'm going to call it unlevered beta. Truth is probably levered beta because it's taken from real world data. You'd have to do a study to delever the firm and similar firms to really find out, but we'll just play here. I don't have time to be doing that type of study. So anyway, so interest expense, why don't we just go over here, and for Apple, I'll give you the same type of thing. And we'll just go over here to all these ratios. This is the old worksheet that we're using. We'll just go to times interest earn ratio, and the interest expense, I believe, was 2,591. We'll correct the zeros later. Then we'll get the tax rate, same. This is going to be the same sheet, okay. And then finally, we'll get the unlevered beta. And for the unlevered beta, this is just to show you where you get it. Now, obviously, we've been using sort of unscientifically Yahoo Finance, but let's go to Yahoo Finance. It's free after all. Okay, and we'll go to Yahoo Finance, and we'll put in MSFT, and MSFT. Here we'll try again. We'll put in MSFT. Well, it won't change on us. Okay, and it's going to give you a beta somewhere here. Okay, and beta 0.81. So we'll use 0.81 for our unlevered beta, And what beta is, you should have taken finance by now, but what beta is, through the capital asset pricing model, it's supposed to measure a company's, the relationship between a company, the return on a company's stock and the return on the market. So if the market goes up 1% and a company has a beta of 1, it'll go up 1%, or it'll go up, if it has a beta of 1, it'll go up 1%. That's correct. If the stock market, if a company has a beta of 1 and the stock market goes down by 2%, the stock will go down by 2%. But if a beta has, if our stock has a beta of 0.9 and the market goes up by 1%, the stock will go up by 0.9%, 9/10 of 1%, or go down. If it goes down by 1%, it'll go down by 9/10 of 1%. That's the idea anyway. So a beta of 1 means that you have the same risk as the market, as a well-diversified portfolio, which should be most diversified as the market, entire market. Then if it has a beta, if you have a beta of over 1, then it's riskier than the market. Beta beneath 1, it's less risky than the market. They're saying that market structure is less risky than the market. Well, okay, I'll take their word for it. Okay, so anyways, that's where I'm getting the beta from, and it's probably levered, but I don't have the time to do the type of study to see what their unlevered beta is or go. Okay, so go back to the sheet here, and we'll use 0.81 as the unlevered beta, and I will clean these numbers up. Why they for this particular, this has never even formatted before. Okay, and we'll do percentages here with 2 decimal places. Okay, and we will put $sign here just to make sure everybody understands these are dollars. Okay, and I think these are billions, millions of dollars. These are millions of dollars. I'm just going up here. Yeah, everything, both shares and dollars are millions. Okay, the next step is I'm going to compute the free cash flow. Okay, and I'm just going to put in free cash flow. We're going to do it both to equity and to the firm and to equity. So there's 2 different levels of free cash flow, probably more levels than that. But free cash flow to the firm is the free cash flow that's produced by the assets available to pay interest and dividends. Free cash flow to equity is just the cash available to pay dividends because we take out the interest expense. Kind of the difference between ROA and ROE too. Okay, so free cash flow to the firm. We're going to start with the income from net income, basically from operations, and add back interest expense net of taxes. So income, say net income, but I'll just net income from, I'm going to say operations, continuing operations. Then we're going to add back interest expense net of taxes. So we'll just take interest expense times 1 minus tax rate. This really is what we added back in return on shareholders' equity, you'll notice. Okay, then we'll come to a subtotal. Why I'm doing that, I don't know. Well, there's a name that you could call a subtotal, which would be cash flow, free cash flow to the firm in a sense. Okay, without the adjustments. Okay, then we're going to subtract out our increase. It's going to be minus, I'm already getting it's going to be an increase because the company's growing. Minus increase in working capital plus depreciation expense plus depreciation expense. Okay, and then minus capital expenditures. Okay, and then this will give us our free cash flow to the firm. If we then subtract out the same number we just added back up top, and we should have done capital budgeting because this is so much like capital budgeting in some senses. interest expense net of taxes, put that in parentheses, net of taxes. That'll give us our free cash flow to equity. And free cash flow to equity means you've taken out the interest expense, so it's just available to pay dividends. So at this level, free cash flow to the firm, it's free cash flow to pay both dividends and interest, and then take out the interest, and it's just like free cash flow to pay it. Okay, so let's go over here, and this is going to come from, well, since I took the time to copy them over, I'll just use the statements up here. I should have just got the original sheet. Okay, so your net income is 44,281. Okay, our interest expense net of taxes is going to be this interest expense here times 1 minus the tax rate, which is your 16.51% right there. Okay, so that gives me 2163. We're adding that back. That gives us a subtotal, which in a sense, it's an unadjusted income. Well, in a sense, you could say it's income available to shareholders. Okay, and then we're going to subtract out the increase in working capital, and we just need to total the working capital, the current item adjustment on the statement of cash flows, subtotal total, sum. Okay, and it's going to be, let's see, we're going to go here. Here's your statement of cash flows. Now, here it is. We'll start with accounts receivable. Here's all your operating assets and liabilities. So basically, term items. I'm just going to include, I probably should include that long-term item because they're not just looking at current assets and liabilities. They're looking at anything that's non-current. Long-term items quite frequently are current. But I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, so that's going to be minus 28331. I probably should have done it because it should be included in there because it's a portion of non-current assets, which probably had no impact on cash, but that's okay. We'll stick with the old formula. And then we're going to add back depreciation expense, and depreciation expense should be up here somewhere. It's probably going to be amortization depreciation again. Let's see, depreciation amortization. We'll just add that back. Okay, and then minus capital expenditures is equal to, I think they just had, basically, and it surprised me that a software company, let's go here to investing, that they had that much in capital expenditures. That to me surprised me that it was that large. They have, so it's going to be 15 because I've seen companies have smaller. I didn't compare it to the total assets though. So anyway, so our free cash flow is going to be the subtotal plus the minus the increase in working capital plus depreciation expense minus capital expenditures gives you a free cash flow of 40 right there. Okay, and then we're going to take out 40 something, 41 more, and then we're going to take out the interest. So that's your free cash flow of the firm. So 41, this number here, is the number that's available to pay both taxes, both dividends and interest. We're going to take out our interest expense net of taxes and make that a minus, and that should give us our free cash flow to equity, which is that. So the subtotals here, for some reason or other, and it's probably a good thing to write, subtotal that. Next subtotal is right there, where we come to free cash flow to the firm. Make that bold. And then finally, there's another subtotal right there. We take out the interest, and I'll underline this. I will double underline this. That is your bottom line there. Okay, although it's your bottom line, I wouldn't say that it's your most important line. I would say free cash flow to the firm is more important. Okay, just my view on things. Okay, now next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get I'm gonna set up the next video here. I'm almost finished with this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to compute what we're calling unlevered equity. So I'm going to compute what I'm calling unlevered equity. And I want you to understand, I'm going to go back to the original concept so that you understand what the concept is. So unlevered return. I'm going to put this RU right there. I'll be calling it RU. And here's what this is. This would be the return, the required return on equity on an unlevered firm. So if we go back to the original concept, we're pretending right now that this is Microsoft, that it's unlevered firm. So, and the way we're going to compute this return on unlevered equity is we're going to, it's based on the unlevered beta that I just picked up, the so-called unlevered beta I picked up, which is 0.81. I'll just pretend it's unlevered. It probably is levered, but you'd have to go back and do studies. And unlevered beta would be the beta on a company which had no you have two different companies here, but you would have a beta on one which would be unlevered, and you'd have a beta on this one which would be levered. Okay, and there's a linear, I won't say linear, but there's sort of a linear relationship. The more debt you take out, the more risk you have, so your beta should go up. Okay, so but anyway, we're going to start with unlevered beta, but the concept is we're, in a sense, because we're using unlevered beta, the unlevered return on equity is going to be unlevered. We're going to be assuming Microsoft has no debt. Okay, and so we're going to come back here, right here. Okay, and the return on unlevered equity. We're going to start with the risk-free rate, and I'll make an assumption about that, which will probably be way too high for nowadays. We used to have a risk-free rate of about 5% for a few years. Okay, we'll be calling this RF. That's our risk-free rate, which is a bank account. Let's assume that's 0.02. That's really, really, really too high a risk-free rate. It probably should be closer to between 1 and 1.5% on a long-term investment. We'll stick with 0.2 because it's clean. Okay, and then we will do unlevered beta. We'll put in, these are the variables, unlevered beta. I'll put this sheet up here for you so that you see where the formulas are coming from. Okay, and then we're going to put up a market risk premium. Okay, and I'm going to put up a market premium. And I'm going to put a footnote beside this. Okay, and the market premium, let's assume that it's 8%. Okay, and I'm going to say that this is the premium over the risk-free rate. So it really is the return on the unlevered beta minus the risk-free rate. Okay, so in a sense, we are assuming the return on the market is 10%, in a sense. Okay, so because I'm just saying that 10% minus the 2, the R minus D, and I'll even sort of put this in parentheses. I'll do this, i.e. 10% minus 2% is equal to the risk-free rate of 8%. That's the concept, but I'm just putting it in terms of premium. Okay, and so we will get our unlevered return to beta down here. And here's the equation. You're just going to take the risk-free rate and you're going to add to that the product of unlevered beta times the risk premium there, and %. Let's see. So it's a pretty small difference right there. Okay, so it's a 0.0048 difference. But anyway, so that would be the return on a company like Microsoft, theoretically, uh, assuming they have no debt. Okay. Anyway, so and that's probably a levered beta, but we'll just play right here. Okay. Anyway, so that's the video, but keep this concept, at least conceptually, in mind that we are assuming this right here. That as we go on to the next video, especially that we're assuming that Microsoft has no debt. Now, in the next video, I'll just put up the title and I'll finish this video. We're going to do two valuation methods. There's actually three. I never liked the third one though. We're first going to use the adjusted present value approach. Which I like in some cases, depends on what you're doing. I also like it as a verification method. But of course, I like down here, we'll do the weighted average cost of capital. It'll give you the same answer, but they're two different perspectives, let's say. And there's also one that's called the flow. There's flow equity approach, but I've never liked because it gives you a good summary number if you're doing nothing else. But I think there's too many leverage effects to really. I think you have to break it down and look at the whole thing more analytically. Okay, so in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the valuation of Microsoft with no growth. We're going to use no growth formula using adjusted present value. And then we're going to do the same thing in the next video after that using the weighted average cost of capital approach. Anyway, I'll stop here and put this video up. Thank you.